April 1945. In a quiet Bavarian town, young German women stood behind locked doors, waiting for the Americans to arrive. For years, Nazi propaganda had painted the enemy as monsters, men who would bring chaos, violence, and revenge. But when the tanks finally rolled into the streets, what happened next left many civilians stunned into silence. Because the soldiers they feared most did something nobody expected. The church bells had stopped ringing 3 days earlier. In the small Bavarian town of Schrobenhausen, silence had become more frightening than bombs. The war was collapsing around them. German soldiers were retreating eastward in broken columns, wounded men limped through muddy roads, and frightened civilians whispered the same question to one another every morning. How close are the Americans? By April 1945, everyone already knew the answer. They were close. Very close. For 20-year-old Margaret Muller, every hour felt heavier than the last. She lived with her mother and younger sister in a narrow apartment above her father's old tailor shop near the town square. Her father had died on the Eastern Front 2 years earlier, and since then the family survived mostly on rationed bread, potatoes, and fear. Fear had become part of daily life in Germany. Not only fear of bombs or starvation, but fear of what would happen when the enemy finally arrived. For years, Nazi newspapers, radio broadcasts, posters, and officials repeated horrifying warnings about Allied soldiers. Young women especially were told terrifying stories. Teachers spoke about it in schools. Local party officials repeated it during meetings. Rumors spread from town to town faster than facts ever could. The Americans, they said, would show no mercy. Margaret remembered one speech clearly. A Nazi official visiting the town months earlier had warned the women directly. If the Americans enter Germany, no German woman will be safe. Those words stayed in her mind like poison. Now the Americans were almost there. That morning, her mother carefully closed every curtain in the apartment. The family spoke quietly, barely above whispers. Outside, carts rolled down the street as some families attempted to flee south toward the Alps, hoping the war would somehow continue there. Others stayed behind because they had nowhere else to go. Near noon, the sound finally arrived. Engines. Low. Heavy. Mechanical. Margaret froze beside the window. The Americans. Somebody outside shouted, "They're here." Her younger sister began crying immediately. Their mother ordered both girls away from the windows. Doors throughout the building slammed shut one after another. Curtains closed across the entire street as if the town itself was trying to disappear. Then came the rumble of tanks moving across cobblestones. Margaret's heart pounded so hard she thought she might faint. Everything she had been told her entire life had led to this moment. The enemy was finally entering the town. And everyone believed the nightmare was about to begin. The tanks stopped in the town square just after noon. For nearly an hour, nobody dared step outside. Behind shuttered windows, families waited in terrified silence, listening to boots echo across the cobblestones. Every sound felt amplified, the clatter of equipment, distant voices speaking English, engines idling in the square below. Margaret sat at the kitchen table gripping her sister's hand so tightly it hurt. Nobody spoke. Then came the knock. 3 sharp hits against the downstairs door of the tailor shop. Her mother's face went pale instantly. Another knock followed, louder this time. For a brief moment, the apartment seemed frozen in time. Margaret could hear her younger sister quietly sobbing beside her. Every terrible story she had ever heard rushed back into her mind at once. The warnings. The rumors. The whispered horror stories repeated by neighbors and party officials for years. The Americans had come. Her mother slowly stood up, trembling so badly she nearly lost balance. Nobody wanted to answer the door, but refusing soldiers could be dangerous. Carefully, she walked downstairs while the girls remained upstairs in terrified silence. The front door creaked open below. Then, nothing. No screaming. No crashing furniture. No gunshots. Only muffled voices. Margaret waited several seconds before quietly moving toward the stairwell. Her heart pounded so violently she could barely breathe. She leaned down just enough to see into the shop below. 2 American soldiers stood near the doorway. Young. Tired. Covered in dust from the road. One of them held a rifle loosely against his shoulder while the other removed his helmet and spoke slowly in broken German. "Water," he asked politely. "Please." That was all. Not threats. Not violence. Water. Margaret stared in disbelief. Her mother, still visibly shaking, nodded silently and brought them a bucket and several cups. The soldiers thanked her immediately. One even attempted a small smile, though exhaustion covered his face. The younger American glanced around the tailor shop briefly before pointing toward an old framed photograph hanging near the counter, Margaret's father in military uniform. "Your husband?" he asked softly. Her mother nodded. The soldier lowered his eyes for a moment and quietly said something in English to his companion that Margaret could not understand. But whatever he said caused both men to become noticeably more respectful. Then something happened that Margaret would remember for the rest of her life. The soldiers finished drinking, thanked her again, and walked back outside. That was it. They left. No shouting. No destruction. No cruelty. Only 2 exhausted young men asking for water. For several long seconds, nobody in the apartment moved. Margaret slowly looked out the window toward the square. More American soldiers moved through town, but instead of terrorizing civilians, many simply ignored them completely. Some handed chocolate to children cautiously peeking from doorways. Others smoked cigarettes beside their tanks, looking more tired than triumphant. Nothing matched the nightmare they had been promised. And for the first time in years, a dangerous thought entered Margaret's mind. What if they had been lied to about everything? By the second day of the occupation, the atmosphere in the town had begun to change. Not completely. The fear was still there, hiding behind every cautious glance and half-open curtain. But something else had appeared alongside it now: confusion. The Americans were not behaving the way people expected. Margaret noticed it first in the streets. Civilians who had spent the previous day hiding indoors slowly began stepping outside again. Elderly men swept broken glass from sidewalks. Women cautiously reopened small shops. Children, naturally less afraid than adults, wandered closer to the American vehicles parked around the square. And still, the violence everyone feared never came. Instead, the soldiers mostly kept to themselves. Some distributed food rations. Others helped direct refugees moving through the area. A military doctor was even seen treating an elderly German man who had collapsed near the church from exhaustion. Each new moment chipped away at the terrifying image that propaganda had built for years. But not everyone accepted it easily. That evening, Margaret visited a neighbor downstairs, Frau Becker, whose son had died fighting in Normandy the year before. The older woman sat near the radio in darkness, nervously twisting a handkerchief in her hands. "It's temporary," she whispered. "Just wait. The real horror will begin later." Margaret wanted to believe her. In some strange way, it felt safer to believe the fear than to question everything she had ever been taught. Because if the propaganda had lied about the Americans, what else had been a lie? That question frightened her more than the tanks ever had. The next morning brought another unexpected moment. Margaret and her sister were carrying buckets of water from a public pump when an American convoy stopped nearby. Instantly, both girls lowered their heads and stepped aside. One soldier climbed down from a truck holding several small packages. Chocolate. The younger children nearby rushed forward immediately, but older civilians remained frozen with suspicion. The soldier hesitated awkwardly before offering one of the chocolate bars toward Margaret's little sister. For a moment, nobody moved. Then her sister slowly accepted it. The American smiled briefly, tipped his helmet politely, and returned to the truck without saying another word. Margaret looked down at the chocolate in disbelief. It was such a small thing. But after years of war, starvation, propaganda, and fear, that tiny gesture felt almost impossible to understand. Because monsters were not supposed to act like this. And deep inside, Margaret could feel the world she had grown up believing in beginning to crack apart. A week after the Americans entered the town, the war in Europe was nearly over. The sound of gunfire had faded into the distance, replaced by something unfamiliar to the people of Schrobenhausen. Quiet. Real quiet. For the first time in years, there were no air raid sirens. No emergency announcements crackling over radios. No party officials shouting orders in the streets. The giant banners that once hung across the town square had disappeared almost overnight, as if the old world itself had quietly collapsed. And with it, so had much of the fear. Margaret noticed the change slowly. At first, civilians only spoke to American soldiers when necessary. But day by day, cautious conversations began replacing silence. A local baker reopened his shop after American troops shared extra flour supplies. Children played soccer near parked military trucks while exhausted soldiers watched from the sidewalks, some laughing quietly at the game. The occupation still felt strange. The uncertainty remained. Nobody knew what Germany's future would look like. But the nightmare they had expected never arrived. One afternoon, Margaret passed through the town square and saw something she never imagined possible months earlier. An American soldier sat beside the church fountain helping an elderly German woman repair the wheel of her cart. No cameras. No officers watching. No propaganda. Just a tired young man helping someone who reminded him of home. Margaret stopped walking and stared for several seconds. In that moment, the final piece of fear inside her finally broke apart. Not because the Americans were perfect. Not because war had suddenly become noble or clean. But because reality had turned out to be far more human than hatred had allowed her to believe. Years later, Margaret would still remember those first days of occupation with absolute clarity. Not because of violence or revenge, but because of the shocking realization that fear had controlled an entire nation through lies repeated often enough to feel true. The enemies she had been taught to fear most had not arrived as monsters. They arrived as exhausted young men who wanted water, cigarettes, sleep, and for the war to finally end. And for many German civilians, that discovery changed something forever. Because once people begin to question one lie, they often begin questioning everything.